importance of biofuels for aviation. United Airlines is really making some of those investments, my hometown airline out of Chicago. I also want to associate myself with the comments of my friend, Senator Ernst from Iowa, that the RFS is critically important for that clean energy future and that biofuels are a critical part of that. And I just want to stress that the cost of gasoline at the pump is not dictated by the price of RINs, and that there are other factors that drive up the price of gasoline at the pump. But Mr. Secretary, I thank you for being here today, and I want to commend you for taking the initiative last year to restore the local labor hiring pilot program. We share a real commitment to empowering communities to design infrastructure contracts that prioritize creating new jobs through local and economic hiring programs. As a former mayor, can you explain the job creation benefits of providing local leaders with the freedom and flexibility to decide for themselves whether they wish to prioritize local job creation when awarding construction contracts?
Absolutely, and thank you for the question, Senator. You know, too often we hear stories from people who live in a community, they see an infrastructure project happening around them, they see the folks in the hard hats with good paying jobs working literally in their neighborhood, and think to themselves, it doesn't appear that anybody here working on this project looks like they came from anywhere near here. And it's partly in response to that. And on the positive side, in response to the enormous opportunity to build generational wealth, to support pathways into the middle class, that we want to support local communities that are choosing to move in this direction. And so we've reactivated the pilot program as available to federal highway under the law, and look forward to working with all of the authorities and flexibilities that exist within the bipartisan infrastructure law to continue to open that door for local and economic hiring, because we know how much it means to communities, to neighborhoods, and to families.
Thank you, and I couldn't agree more. That's why one of my top priorities during the development of the bipartisan infrastructure law was making sure we eliminated the outdated one-size-fits-all ban on including local hiring incentives in construction project contracts. Mr. Secretary, as we work to create new good-paying jobs that put residents back to work rebuilding their local communities, how will new and existing US DOT grant programs evaluate applications that include local and economic hiring preferences?
Well, thanks to the bipartisan infrastructure law, it's very specific that a recipient may use a local or other geographic or economic hiring preference for labor on construction projects that are funded. As a result, we are going to be moving forward in a way that is consistent with that legal framework. And it does update things for some of our state and local partners. So the ability to transition from that pilot program that we were proud to launch in May of 2021 to allowing those preferences now authorized under the law, I think is a big step and a very positive one that's going to position us to really unlock so much of the economic potential of this bill.
Thank you. One of the other things that the bipartisan infrastructure law does is that it recognizes a basic principle. As we work to repair and enhance our infrastructure, we must also make sure that these upgrades benefit all Americans. That's why I fought so hard to include the All-Station Accessibility Program, or ASAP Act, in the law. I was pleased that the Biden administration recognized the importance of ASAP by including it in its top 10 programs in the bipartisan infrastructure law that you may not have heard about fact sheet. Secretary Buttigieg, can you explain how our new $1.75 billion ASAP grant programs improves mobility for commuters with disabilities by prioritizing accessibility efforts such as the Chicago Transit Authority's ASAP plan? And how does it accelerate project deployment, which otherwise would take decades for transit and commuter rail systems to complete?
Well, thank you. As you know, and as you showed to me when I was able to visit CTA with you last year, though 75% of America's rail transit stations are ADA accessible, the remaining 25% will remain inaccessible, even as we look back to the time that has passed since the 1990 ADA, because they have that legacy date associated with them prior to the act. So thanks to the ASAP program, thanks to that $1.75 billion, there's an opportunity to update those legacy rail transit stations that were set up pre-ADA and make them accessible with projects to repair or modify or retrofit them so that they have that accessibility. We are working hard on making that program available. We anticipate it being available later this year. As you know, it's $350 million each year across 5 years. And we think it's so important for not just, of course, the basic equity and fairness at stake, but unlocking the economic potential of communities with so many workers with disabilities who could be better able to contribute to the economy and life of their communities, provided they could get to where they need to be.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'm out of time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot for joining us, Secretary Duckworth. We've been joined by, this is one